Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
My name is Michael, and I'm a 54-year-old office worker staring down retirement in a few years. For the longest time, I brushed it off as something far away, something that happened to other people. But lately, watching my colleagues either retire or take early retirement packages has forced me to face reality, whether I like it or not. Looking back, my life has revolved entirely around work. I've been the definition of a dedicated employee, staying with the same medium-sized firm since I started fresh out of school, working my way up in accounting and HR. While I've proven myself and built a solid reputation, I can't help but notice how things are shifting as retirement looms. My bosses seem to hesitate to give me challenging assignments, yet they clearly value the expertise I've built up over the decades. These days, I find myself in this strange middle ground with a lighter workload. No more burning the midnight oil like I used to. All these changes have got me thinking about Sophia, my wife of 30 years. We started out like any happy newlyweds, traveling, celebrating anniversaries, the whole 9 yards. But somewhere along the line, something changed. Our relationship became like a ghost of itself. And no, I don't mean that in the comfortable, worn-in shoes kind of way. We're more like two strangers sharing an address. These days, my go-to move when I get home is just grabbing the remote. Sophia and I barely exchange 2 words anymore. Any attempt at conversation fizzles out with a half-hearted mm. Yeah, so I've learned it's easier to zone out with TV or scroll through my phone. This has been our new normal for years now. We never had kids, though I'd always thought we would. Between climbing the corporate ladder and endless overtime, we never sat down to seriously discuss it. Sophia would occasionally drop hints like things would be different with kids, but we never made it happen. Now, at our age, I sometimes wonder if having children would have changed our marriage's trajectory, but that's water under the bridge. Then came that evening when I dropped my fork, such a tiny thing that would end up turning my whole world upside down. I still get goosebumps thinking about how different things might be if I hadn't dropped that fork and just finished my dinner like any other night. It's crazy how one small slip can change everything. That evening, I got home around 7 p.m. as usual. Even though they'd been easing up on my workload as retirement approached, I felt bone tired. Being in this weird limbo between regular employee and management means I'm always walking on eggshells. When I walked in, the TV was the first thing I noticed. Some sitcom was playing in the living room, but instead of bringing life to the space, the canned laughter just made everything feel more hollow. Dinner was laid out on the table, nothing but microwaved frozen meals and side dishes from the supermarket. I caught myself sighing and thinking, here we go again. Sophia hasn't cooked in years now. Back in the day, even though she wasn't exactly Julia Child, she at least tried. She'd whip up basic pasta dishes, hearty stews, and simple stir-fries. But somewhere along the way, frozen dinners and instant meals became our new normal. I never voiced wanting home-cooked meals, figuring she wouldn't care anyway. Then again, I never bothered learning to cook either. I guess I just fell into the trap of thinking any food would do, as long as it filled the hole. Our dinner table had all the warmth of a waiting room. Sophia just sat there on the couch, barely acknowledging my existence, staring through the TV rather than at it. Her eyes had this faraway look, like she was physically present but mentally checked out. It wasn't just that she was expressionless. It was like looking at an empty shell. Part of me wanted to ask if she was okay, but I knew I'd just get the cold shoulder, so I sat down without a word. Looking at our sad excuse for dinner spread out on the coffee table, microwave chicken nuggets straight from the freezer section, along with some sorry-looking broccoli and spinach that had been reheated back to life. I couldn't help wondering when our meals had become so depressing. I tried to lose myself in the TV's background noise as I picked at my food. Sophia might as well have been a piece of furniture for all the attention she paid me. The thought that she couldn't even manage a simple, welcome home, left me feeling hollow, but I didn't bother trying to start a conversation either. As I ate in silence, the over-the-top laugh track from the sitcom seemed to mock our situation, making me wince. I wanted to tell her about my day at work, but the moment never felt right. I'd learned the hard way that it was better to keep quiet than try to force a conversation only to get shot down. So I just focused on my food, trying to convince myself this was fine. Then it happened. My fork slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. In the complete silence of our living room, it sounded like a cymbal crash. I automatically mumbled, "Sorry," but my words just evaporated into the empty air. When I glanced up to catch Sophia's reaction, she let out an exasperated sigh and muttered something about using the spare fork from the kitchen drawer. I hadn't even noticed it was there before. "No, I'll get this one," I said, leaning down to retrieve the dropped utensil. As I reached for it, my eyes accidentally caught sight of Sophia's skirt. Despite the dim living room lighting, something seemed off. There was no trace of underwear where there should have been. My mind went blank with shock. Why would she be sitting at the dinner table like this? Was it deliberate, or had she somehow forgotten? It defied all logic. I picked up the fork and returned to my seat, my heart hammering in my chest. My mind raced, trying to make sense of this completely unexpected situation. Sophia maintained her distant demeanor, showing no reaction or acknowledgement. That made it even more unsettling. What was going on? I couldn't fathom any reasonable explanation. Should I say something? Keep quiet? As these thoughts churned in my head, my appetite vanished completely. Though the TV droned on, I couldn't focus on anything except my growing unease. I couldn't even bring myself to look at Sophia anymore. Dinner remained largely untouched that night. The next morning, I found Sophia in the kitchen at the usual time. She wasn't cooking anything elaborate, just popping bread in the toaster and brewing instant coffee. The sight of that lonely piece of toast with its single pat of butter seemed to symbolize our marriage. I hesitated, wondering if I should say good morning. Sophia barely glanced my way before turning back to her tasks without a word. As I sat down with my coffee, last night's disturbing discovery came flooding back. Though I tried to convince myself I must have been mistaken, another furtive glance confirmed my suspicions. Still no visible underwear lines. Had she been going around like this since early morning? Why? The questions piled up, but I couldn't voice any of them. I kept imagining how she might react if I directly asked about it, but every scenario I played out in my head ended badly. At work that day, I couldn't concentrate at all. Even as I stared at my computer screen trying to focus on reports, my mind kept circling back to that unsettling scene. Was this some kind of provocative message? Or worse, was she seeing someone else and had left her underwear at their place? I tried to dismiss such thoughts as ridiculous. Surely nothing that dramatic could be happening in my life. But I had no way to prove otherwise. Something was definitely wrong. When concerned colleagues asked if I was feeling okay, all I could manage was a week, just didn't sleep well. After all, how could I possibly explain what was really bothering me? Though some might have laughed it off as typical marriage troubles, my gut told me this was something more serious. A few days later, I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore and requested the afternoon off. After wrapping up the most pressing work, I left before lunch and drove straight home. I had to know what Sophia was doing during the day. My peace of mind depended on it. Whether driven by jealousy or anxiety, I wasn't sure. I just knew that sitting around letting suspicion eat away at me wasn't an option anymore. As I approached our street, I spotted an unfamiliar car parked outside. Seeing a strange vehicle there on a weekday afternoon sent my heart racing. I stared at it intently, trying to place it. It wasn't any kind of commercial vehicle, just an older model sedan that had seen better days. A sense of dread crept over me. I parked my car and approached our front door as quietly as possible. When I tried my key, I discovered the door wasn't even locked. Strange, since Sophia always used the digital lock, even when she was home. My sense of foreboding grew stronger, but I couldn't turn back now. I slipped off my shoes and crept down the hallway. The living room was empty and silent, TV off, curtains drawn. Through the partially open bedroom door, I could hear voices. One was unmistakably Sophia's. My heart clenched, but what really made my blood run cold was hearing her say, "Mr. Thompson." No, it couldn't be. I peered through the gap in the door, and my worst fears were confirmed. There was Sophia, in each other's arms with a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 50s. They were pressed together on our bed. The sight hit me like a physical blow, but the conversation that followed was even more devastating. With a sleazy grin, Mr. Thompson said, "Good thing I'm the manager. If anyone else had caught you on those security cameras, it would have been game over." Sophia pressed closer to him, her voice sickeningly sweet as she replied, "Yes, thank you so much for covering for me." Their words shattered what was left of my heart. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It seemed impossible this could be real. It appeared that Sophia had been caught shoplifting at the supermarket by the manager, Mr. Thompson, who was now blackmailing her. What really threw me was how Sophia seemed to be into it. She wasn't acting like someone being coerced at all. Instead, she was all over him, practically hanging on his every word. None of this made any sense. Maybe the blackmail was just how it started, but now she seemed to be a willing participant. All I could do was stand there muttering, "I can't believe this," under my breath. The whole situation, my wife being both a thief and unfaithful, was like something out of a bad dream. Feeling sick to my stomach, I pulled out my phone and started recording. As much as I hated having to document this, I knew I needed solid proof. Otherwise, Sophia might try to deny everything later. After getting about 30 seconds of footage, I crept back down the hallway as silently as I'd come and slipped out of the house. Back in my car, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, completely shell-shocked. Rage and disbelief fought for control in my chest. Finding out about an affair would have been devastating enough on its own. But this? My wife was also a criminal? My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of how everything had gone so terribly wrong. The following week, I did some detective work to track down Mr. Thompson's workplace. It wasn't hard. I just went through Sophia's shopping receipts and asked around until I found the right store. Around 9 p.m., I staked out the parking lot near closing time. Sure enough, out walks this middle-aged guy through the employee exit, his thinning hair catching the streetlight as he carried his suit jacket over his shoulder. It was definitely him, the same man I'd caught with my wife. Mustering every ounce of courage I had, I called out, "Mr. Thompson, I'm Sophia's husband. We need to talk." The guy didn't even flinch. He just fixed me with this smug look that made my blood boil. "Well, if it isn't the husband himself, you've gone to quite a bit of trouble, haven't you?" His condescending tone got under my skin, but I kept it together long enough to pull out my phone and show him the video. He barely glanced at it before sneering, "Oh, that little bedroom recording?" His total lack of shame just made me angrier. You can't just get away with what you did to Sophia. What you did is straight up illegal. I was trying to keep my cool, but my hands were starting to shake. Thompson just smirked and reached into his pocket. "That might be true, but I've got some evidence of my own." He pulled out several photos that clearly showed Sophia stealing from the supermarket. They were obviously security camera screenshots, and there was no mistaking her face. If these ever made it to the police, Sophia would be facing criminal charges for sure. "Yeah, I covered for your wife's sticky fingers, but the second you try to come after me, these go straight to the cops. After all, thieves need to face justice, right?" Thompson's face was a mask of smug satisfaction. We were at a stalemate, my video of the affair versus his evidence of theft. "Sure, we could take this to court if you want, but let's be real, that would be messy for everyone. Your wife gets a criminal record, your reputation takes a hit at work, plus, you'd still be known as the guy whose wife cheated on him. Seems like a lose-lose to me." Thompson let out this theatrical sigh while looking down his nose at me. I could only stand there, biting my lip in frustration. There was no defending the theft, and they had us cornered. Even if we called them out on the affair, they could just point to Sophia's crimes as the starting point. That's when Thompson dropped the most insane bombshell of all. He suggested we swap wives. Look, Sophia's gotten pretty attached to me by now, and clearly you don't want a wife like this anymore. So here's the deal. I'll give you my wife. We both keep our mouths shut, and everybody wins. What do you say? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sheer audacity of treating our wives like trading cards made me sick to my stomach. This kind of thing only happened in sleazy movies, not real life. Are you kidding me? People aren't property you can just trade around. I tried to sound tough, but he remained unfazed. It's simple. I get Sophia, you get my wife, and nobody has to press charges. With that, he climbed into his car, rolled down the window for one final jab. Don't forget, we've got your wife on camera stealing, and drove off. I stood there watching his taillights disappear, completely at a loss. The whole situation was beyond absurd, but what choice did we have? With Sophia's theft hanging over our heads, even divorce wouldn't solve anything. One wrong move and this could blow up into a police investigation, probably costing me my job in the process. I felt paralyzed by the whole mess. Then, a few days later, Thompson actually called. I'm sending my wife over to you. Whatever. None of it matters anymore anyway, he said, like he was talking about dropping off a used couch. His casual cruelty made my stomach turn, but with the threat of Sophia's theft going public, we had to play along. Later that evening, I found myself at the meeting spot after work. There was a petite woman with brown hair waiting there, looking lost and uncertain. This is Jasmine, my wife. I'm done with her. She's your problem now. With those callous words, Thompson abandoned her there and drove off. Jasmine, clutching a small bag to her chest, gave me an awkward half-smile and said quietly, "Nice to meet you." "I'm so sorry about all of this," I said softly. Jasmine was younger than I'd expected, probably in her late 40s. Her clothes looked worn and plain, and exhaustion was written all over her face. My heart ached thinking about what she must have gone through with Mr. Thompson. I brought Jasmine to my place and unlocked the door. The house felt eerily empty. Sophia had taken almost everything. Her suitcases, clothes, makeup, all gone. There was barely enough space left for Jasmine's things. Standing there in the stripped-down house, I felt like I was in some bizarre dream. Still trying to process how life had taken such a dramatic turn, I gestured inside and said, "Please, come in." That first night was awkward. I had no idea how to act around Jasmine. It didn't feel right to pry into what she'd been through with Thompson, and to her, I was just some stranger she'd been forced to live with. When I saw her sitting tensely on the couch, I asked, "Can I get you something to eat?" She shook her head. "Thank you, but I don't think I could eat anything right now." I couldn't blame her. Being essentially traded like property and moved into a stranger's house would kill anyone's appetite. Accepting the uncomfortable situation for what it was, I heated up some leftovers for myself and called it a night. The next day when I got home from work, wonderful cooking aromas filled the house. As soon as I opened the door, I was greeted by the smell of a home-cooked dinner. The dining table was set with a lovely spread of comfort food. Everything looked like it had been prepared with care. "Did you make all this?" I asked in amazement. Jasmine gave me a warm smile. "Yes, I enjoy cooking and thought it might help make this place feel more like home," she said. "I used to work in restaurant management before Thompson, actually." Her voice was confident yet kind. I took a bite and was blown away. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had such delicious home cooking. The flavors were perfectly balanced. "This is incredible," I told her honestly. "Thank you. I used to cook meals like this before. It brings back memories." When I expressed my genuine appreciation, Jasmine's face brightened. It was clear she took pride in her cooking skills. She smiled and said, "I'm really glad you like it." The moment warmed my heart. Our unusual living arrangement turned out more peaceful than I could have imagined. We quickly established a comfortable routine, each contributing what we could to make the situation work. Her presence brought new life to the house. Every evening there'd be a simple but lovingly prepared home-cooked meal, and she kept the place spotless. Looking back, the past few years with Sophia had been lifeless. The house was always a mess, dusty floors, clutter everywhere. But since Jasmine arrived, everything felt fresh again. She brought warmth to the simplest things, changing tablecloths, folding laundry with care. I'd forgotten how good it felt to have a real home. Still, I couldn't shake thoughts of Sophia from my mind. I didn't want to believe she'd actually stolen anything, but the photos and that bedroom conversation left little room for doubt. Without knowing what drove her to steal or how long it had been going on, she'd fallen into Thompson's trap. My emotions were all over the place. The betrayal of my wife becoming a thief, the humiliation of her affair. It was overwhelming, but our hands were tied. As much as it killed me, letting her go with Thompson seemed better than having her arrested. That's what felt most unfair. I kept wondering if I could have prevented this somehow, if I'd noticed the warning signs sooner. Over time, Jasmine opened up about her difficult marriage to Thompson. She'd lost both parents when she was young and had no family to lean on. She had a successful career in restaurant management when she met Thompson, who seemed kind at first, and they got married. But soon after the wedding, the abuse and controlling behavior started, leaving her trapped and isolated. She wanted to leave, but had nowhere to go, and couldn't bear to tell friends about her situation. Being here has given me a chance to rebuild my life, she told me with determination, though I could still see the healing process in her eyes. I wasn't just helping Jasmine out of pity. Through our daily conversations and shared routines, we developed the kind of genuine connection I remembered from the early days of marriage. It was strange to think about. This forced arrangement had somehow led to a real bond between us. Then one evening as we watched TV together, breaking news changed everything. Breaking news flashed across the TV screen. A supermarket manager had been arrested for sexually harassing female customers. The face in the mugshot was unmistakably Thompson. According to the report, he had been blackmailing women who had committed theft, making inappropriate demands in exchange for his silence. Multiple victims had finally come forward together. When Jasmine saw the news, she froze, her eyes glued to the screen. After what felt like an eternity, she whispered, "Thank goodness," and broke down in tears. It was clear now that Jasmine wasn't his only victim. While I worried about what this meant for Sophia, I couldn't help but feel relieved that Thompson was finally facing justice. For Jasmine, it meant freedom at last. Not long after Thompson's arrest, my phone rang. It was Sophia, her voice shaky and uncertain. "Have you heard? They got Thompson. What am I supposed to do now?" The way she asked for help felt presumptuous, like old times. "We're still married. Can't we give it another shot?" she pleaded. But my heart had moved on. "I'm sorry, but that's not possible. I'm with Jasmine now, and I just can't get past the stealing and the affair." Sophia's voice turned bitter. "What's that supposed to mean? I was lonely. What else could I do?" There was a crash on her end, probably something being thrown, before she spat out, "This is just perfect," and hung up. All traces of warmth were gone between us. It was a heartbreaking end to years of marriage, but there was no going back. After several difficult conversations with Sophia, divorce became inevitable. The theft and infidelity had created a rift too deep to bridge. While I wished we'd addressed our problems sooner, that ship had sailed. Meanwhile, Thompson's arrest opened the door for Jasmine's divorce. Though she'd been trapped by his violence until now, the law had finally set her free. With no family or home to return to, she hesitantly asked if she could stay with me a while longer. "Of course you can stay. I can't imagine you leaving. I want you here," I blurted out, surprising even myself. I couldn't remember the last time I'd spoken so candidly from the heart. "Are you sure?" Jasmine asked, tears welling up in her eyes. "Absolutely sure," I replied firmly. The divorce was finalized, and just like that, I was single again. I haven't heard from Sophia since. She's probably out there somewhere, starting fresh. Maybe she's reflecting on everything, or maybe she's trying to justify what drove her to steal. But honestly, I can't dwell on that anymore. These days, I come home to Jasmine's warm welcome, and we share dinner while chatting about our day or watching TV together. We sit close on the couch, commenting on shows and swapping stories about what happened at work. Though it might seem mundane to others, these simple moments have restored the sense of home I'd lost long ago. One weekend, Jasmine and I went to Home Depot and picked out some houseplants together. We chose a cute little ficus tree, imagining how perfect it would look by the living room window. Little by little, we've been refreshing the space, choosing new furniture and decor. The once dreary rooms feel brighter now, more alive. It amazes me how much difference small touches like new throw pillows or carefully chosen decorations can make, all thanks to Jasmine's eye for detail. Most importantly, I've learned to appreciate life's small kindnesses. Now I never forget to say thank you for something as simple as a home-cooked meal. When she responds with a shy, "It's nothing special," I tell her, I never knew ordinary moments could bring such joy. These little exchanges have become precious to me. Sure, we still face challenges ahead. Retirement is coming up in a few years, and we'll need to figure out how to manage until my pension kicks in. If Jasmine wants to work, I'll support her completely. Maybe we can pool our resources to build a stable future together. Having kids isn't in the cards at our age, but just thinking about sharing our lives fills me with warmth. We haven't decided yet about getting married. Rushing into that would be unwise given our past wounds, and we both need time. But I believe everything will fall into place naturally as we begin this new chapter together. Each night before bed, I look out at the peaceful streetlights illuminating our neighborhood and silently think, another day done. Thank you, Jasmine. She's probably already asleep in her room. Even if she can't hear my gratitude, I no longer feel alone. Going through that nightmare of betrayal and theft taught me just how precious peace truly is. It all started with that dropped fork that night. Without that moment, I might have made it to retirement never knowing about Sophia being half-dressed, the stealing, or the affair. During that time, the atmosphere at home had become stagnant, with Sophia and I growing increasingly distant from each other. Looking back, even that shocking incident became, in an odd way, a wake-up call that forced me to examine my life. What Sophia did, the theft, was inexcusable. While I can understand how her loneliness might have pushed her to that point, it doesn't justify breaking the law. And the affair? That kind of betrayal cuts deep. Maybe if she'd reached out for help sooner, or if I hadn't been so wrapped up in work that I neglected our home life, things might have turned out differently. That thought still haunts me to this day. But I'm not dwelling in the past anymore. I'm focused on building something new. We can't erase what happened, and there's no going back. I'm determined not to make the same mistakes twice. Jasmine shares my desire for a fresh start after escaping Thompson's abuse. This mutual need for renewal has become the foundation of our life together. Sure, some people might raise eyebrows at what looks like a partner swap, and it could definitely get people talking if word got around. It would probably cause quite a stir in our social circle, but I've learned not to let that bother me anymore. Life can change course in the blink of an eye. We both hit rock bottom, but sometimes you need to hit bottom before you can rise again. These days, I wake up to Jasmine making breakfast in the kitchen, just a simple omelet, and I make sure to thank her. Who knew that these little everyday moments could bring such joy? I never saw that when I was younger. Starting over at 54 wasn't exactly in my life plan, but there's something beautiful about finding this kind of happiness later in life. Sure, we've got our share of challenges ahead. Retirement will bring financial hurdles, and if Jasmine wants to work, I'll support her every step of the way. Health issues become more of a concern as we age too, but I'm not running scared anymore. Whatever comes our way, I'm ready to tackle it head-on. I refuse to repeat my past mistake of turning a blind eye when someone I care about is hurting. Our evenings together are simple but special, just sitting on the couch, watching TV, chatting about whatever's on our minds. We'll comment on the news or laugh at silly shows together. These little moments feel like pure gold. I feel a warmth now that was missing even when Sophia and I shared the same space. My heart has learned to love again, and that alone makes everything worthwhile. After all we've been through together, I've been thinking more and more about our future. If she says yes, I'm all in for building a new family together. Some might think 54 is too late for a fresh start, but this is our story, and we're writing it our way. That night when I dropped the fork turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It exposed the cracks in my marriage and sent me through hell, but it also led me to this new beginning. Having been through the worst, I know just how precious this quiet happiness is. There's no way I'm going back to who I was before. From here on out, it's all about building a life with Jasmine, supporting each other and sharing laughter. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs that turn into opportunities. There's always a chance to start fresh. That's something I know for sure now. No more hesitation. I'm ready to embrace whatever retirement brings, taking it one day at a time with Jasmine by my side. I find myself feeling grateful to Jasmine, to that dropped fork, to everything that led me here. It might sound crazy, but that's how I feel. Right now, all I want is to appreciate this gift I've been given. Tonight marked a special moment, my first time entering Jasmine's room. She greeted me with that warm smile of hers, and we just looked at each other, sharing a quiet moment of understanding. This is the start of us becoming true partners, beginning our life together. When I took her hand, that warmth went straight to my heart. This, I realized, is what real love feels like. I won't let go of this happiness, even if it did take me half a lifetime to find it.